Hi everyone, my name is Pauline Scott, and I am so excited to be presenting my article today for online social support. The article that I chose was Stress and its Impact on Social Media Usage. It was authored by Brian Dank, Wenchin Dank, and Wenchin Hsu. I hope I said that right. I found it in the Journal of Technical Writing and Communication. There's a pretty picture of it because we never know what the journals look like that we read. So, what and why? What is the purpose of this article? Well, the purpose of this article was to see if stress would increase social media usage through online support seeking and habitual behavior. So they had two groups fill out surveys. One group, they did an experiment where they induced their stress by asking them to recall an event in the past month that was stressful. So that kind of induced stress within them. And then they had to fill out two surveys. And then the control group had no stress, filled out some surveys. And then they took a 10-minute break in which they were free to do whatever they wanted. And the authors hoped that these people would use Facebook. And then they went back and filled in some more surveys. So the reason they did this was the authors predicted that when it came to seeking online social support, that the more stressed out people would seek out more social support than the control group. And they measured this by using a lot of different scales, a lot of different surveys. So the authors just felt that people spend a lot of time on their phones and the world is a much more stressful place. So they were trying to prove that that people who are stressed out would seek social support through their social media usage, and that would be increased. And they also measured the habitual behavior of it. So the way they did this was they used something called Amazon Mechanical Turk to find their participants. The participants were paid $1 to complete this. I believe it took like 20 minutes. The Amazon Mechanical Turk is something I just learned about through this paper. It's an online marketplace of low-paying hits, which are human intelligence tasks. Now, these are things that AI can't do yet, and companies kind of use this Amazon Mechanical Turk to kind of crowdsource people they need to perform these tasks. So that's pretty cool. The measures, as you can see from this long list, they used a lot of, each one of these came with a different scale. The one that stands out to me is the awareness of network life events. So these were all Likert scales, so 0 being never, like 5 being constantly, and then measured in between. So awareness of network life events, like how aware are you, or how do you feel about when people get engaged or when people get fired and they post about it on Facebook. So I thought that was an interesting scale. The habitual behavior, those kinds of things. I noted too here to measure the stress. So in the last month, how often have you felt nervous or stressed? And then on the other side, when people were seeking social support, they used the emotional support seeking scale, but they modified it to have the term on Facebook at the end of the question. So it kind of reminded me of the thing where you use a fortune cookie. I hope people know what I'm talking about. So for instance, a question would be, I tried to get emotional support from friends or relatives on Facebook during that 10-minute break. So if people were stressed out, did they go online and go to Facebook and try to receive social support that way? They did this through Qualtrics. I'm sure some of us have been through Qualtrics already. So the experiment went, first they stressed people out, then they gave them a 10-minute break, and then they gave them a bunch of surveys. The control group, they just did some surveys, a 10-minute break, and then went back to do the surveys. And hopefully within that 10-minute window, people used Facebook. The results. So what did this bring up? Well, the positive relationship between seeking social support and social media usage. So there was a bit of um, clarification in this. They found out that the habit of using social media was a stronger predictor of social media usage than stress. So basically, stress doesn't cause people to use social media in this particular experiment, but the habit of using social media was a stronger indicator that people would be on their phones on Facebook during that 10-minute break. So I'm sure you can see what I'm getting at here. And then they also found that if users tended to have a stronger perception of social support through online connections, then they are more likely to use social media because it's a convenient source of that social support. Let's see now. Limitations. This paper had a lot of limitations in a very cool way, and I'll explain that in a minute. The number of participants, there was only about 200 people. They only used Facebook, which for 10 minutes on Facebook, I feel like you're not going to get a lot of social support that you feel you need. Facebook is asynchronous, so you can post something and you're not going to hear back immediately. There's nothing immediate about it unless you go live, but I don't think they measured that at all, and I don't even think they thought of that. So they also used a lot of different surveys, and they kind of bounced them off each other to get a percentage of, to see if there was a significant correlation or not a strong or not a significant match between things like stress and social media usage. That was not significant. Whereas habitual behavior and social media usage was very significant find. So the testing only took place during a 10-minute break. This is from the actual paper, and they were free to do anything, not just Facebook. So during that 10-minute break, they could have slept. And a lot of people took more time than 10 minutes. They did 15 minutes, so on and so forth. So right there, it's a little skewed. So here's the fun part. The fun part is because of these limitations, and because we know that in this case, a 10-minute window to measure if stress causes people to use social media more, just Facebook isn't really a thing. Now we can kind of say like, okay, that isn't what we want to measure. Let's measure this. Let's measure more social networking sites. Let's think of the sites that are a bit more synchronous, that are a bit more immediate in terms of receiving social support right away. And I also thought, instead of just using Facebook or other social networking sites, let's look at affordances that we can bounce off of, phase theory, and how people actually handle stress, not only online but offline. In McEwen's chapter, she supports the article's limitations. She says the right network member will respond or you reach out to them directly. In this case, 10 minutes on Facebook isn't enough to really receive that support. So her paper supports the findings of this article, or her chapter, excuse me. And then High and Bueller actually had a lot of stuff that correlates really well, that the support people receive is not fully explained by the intensity in which they use Facebook. So we can't really say, oh, they receive social support because of how often they use Facebook. A lot of people use Facebook for other reasons than social support. Surveillance. So receiving likes and comments increases the user's self-esteem, according to High and Bueller. And you're not going to get a lot of likes and comments on Facebook unless you're a social media influencer who, people go nuts when they post. You're not going to receive a lot of those, so you're not going to feel that love or feel that esteem growing inside of you in a 10-minute window on Facebook. Especially, it depends on what time it is in the day, too, I believe. So, and then Taylor and Bazarova, who studied social media and subjective well-being in their paper, found that close relationships influence your subjective well-being, which is just happiness. So in using Facebook, there's a variance of so many ties from strong to weak. It's hard to say if a 10-minute window on Facebook is going to increase your self-esteem and is going to make you feel happier through your subjective well-being. So I think there's a lot of places we can go because of the limitations found in this paper, which is why I'm so excited. There's a lot of face theory that can be examined, especially like how people are being perceived and the vague booking. How are people perceived when they vague book? So to compare this paper to other future papers, there's a lot of room to grow. So it's a good stepping stone into future research. That is it for me. I hope you enjoyed my little chat on how a paper can go wrong, but yet be so right. And thank you so much for watching. I've really enjoyed watching your videos, and yeah, have a great rest of summer.